Leda by M. Rickert, which is a takeoff on the old myth about Leda and the swan. This is told from different people's viewpoints, and I think it'll be fairly obvious. I'll change my inflection, and I think you'll be able to tell, hopefully, that different people are talking. Okay, this is Leda by M. Rickert. I cannot crack an egg without thinking of her. How could she do this to me? Beautiful Leda, how could you do this to me? I begin each day with a 3-egg omelet. I hold each fragile orb and think of the swell of her vulva. Then I hit it against the bowl. It breaks. A few shell pieces fall in with a sticky egg white, and I chase them around with the tines of a fork, and they always seem out of grasp, but I think, just like her. But not really. Not ever graspable, Leda. How do you love a beautiful woman? I thought I knew. I thought my love was enough. My devotion. I remember when she went through that dragonfly stage and wore dragonfly earrings, and we had dragonfly sheets and dragonfly lampshades and dragonfly pajamas. I was just about sick of dragonflies. Did I tell her? Did I say, Leda, I'm just about sick of those goddamn dragonflies? No, I said nothing. In fact, I sent away for dragonfly eggs. Eggs. Imagine how that mocks me now. I followed the directions carefully and kept them a secret from her. Oh, it pains my heart to think of what she learned from my gift. I was like a dragonfly mother, for Christ's sake. I kept them in pond water. I kept them warm. Last they hatched, or uncocooned, however you'd call it, and still I tended them, secretly, till almost 1,000 were born, and these I presented to her in a box. When she opened it, quickly, or the results might have changed, they flew out, blue and silver, yellow, green, purple. 1,000 dragonflies for her, and she looked at me with those violet eyes, and she looked at them as they flitted about, and then she said, I'll never forget this, she said, they look different from the ones on our pajamas. Oh, Leda, my Leda in the garden, bent over the summer roses, in her silk kimono with the dragonflies on it, nothing underneath. I come upon her like that, a vision, my wife, and she looks up then and sees me watching and knows what she is doing when she unties the robe, lets it fall to the ground, then turns and bends over to prune the roses. Ha! In the dirt, in the sun, in the night. Always Leda, always. Except for this. She comes into the kitchen, her eyes black-ringed, her feet bare and swollen, her belly juts out before her. She stands for a moment, just watching me crack eggs. Then she coughs and shuffles over to the coffee maker, pours herself a cup into which she starts spooning heaps of sugar. I try to resist the impulse, but I cannot stop myself. After all, didn't I once love her? And I say, it's not decaf. I can tell she looks at me with those tired violet eyes, but I refuse to return the courtesy with proper wrist action. Oh, what Leda knew about proper wrist action. Whisks the egg to a froth. How many times do I got to tell you, she says, it ain't that kind of birth. I shrug. What would I know about it? A swan, she says. An egg. Yeah, he did that thing with the dragonflies, and I ain't never heard the end of it. Don't you know how I love you, he goes. Don't you remember all them dragonflies? Yeah, I remember. I remember dragonflies in the sugar bowl, dragonflies in the honey. I remember dragonflies trapped in the window screens and dragonflies in my hair and on my bare skin with their tiny sticky legs creeping me out. What I remember most about the dragonflies is how he didn't get it. He always thinks he has to, improve on me. That's how he loves me. I know that, and I've known it for a long time. Didn't matter because he was good in bed and in the dirt and on the kitchen table. I thought we was friends. So what if he didn't really understand? Nice pair of dragonfly earrings, a necklace. That would have been enough. If I wanted bugs, I wouldn't have been wearing them. Anyway, that's how I always felt, and I didn't care that he's kind of stupid, but now I do. He cracks those eggs like it means something. I'm too tired to try to understand. I pour myself a coffee, makes a big point of not looking at me, mumbling about how it ain't decaf, and I want to pour the coffee right over his head, but I resist the impulse. Go sit in the living room in the green recliner that I got cozied up with piles of blankets like a nest. I drink my coffee and watch the birds. My whole body aches. I should leave him. He's failed me so completely. I sip the coffee. I try not to remember. Wings. Oh, impossible wings, the smell of feathers, the sharp beak, the cry, the pulsing beat. I pressed my hands against my belly. I should call someone, but after that first night, that first phone call, I don't have the energy. I've entered a different life. I'm no longer beautiful and loved. I'm strange and lonely. Rape hotline. Okay, take a deep breath. Yes, raped. Okay, I'm so sorry. It's good you called. We're here to help you. Is he gone? Yes. Are you safe? What? Is anyone with you? My husband, but your husband is with you now. Yes, but if you give me your address, I can send someone over. Okay, are you crying? Yes, raped me. Your husband? No. He don't believe. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. It happened. I know. Okay, can you give me your address? A swan. What? Horrible. Did you say swan? I always thought they were so beautiful. Swans? Yes. What do swans? I mean, I was just taking a walk in our yard, you know. The moon was so pretty tonight, and then he flew at me, the swan. Oh, God, yes. It was horrible. Ma'am, are you saying you were raped by a swan? Yes, I think I could recognize him in a lineup. Could you put your husband on the phone? He don't believe me. I would really like to speak to him. I showed him the feathers, the claw marks. I got red welts all over my skin and bites, and you know what he thinks? Ma'am, he thinks I cheated on him. He thinks I just made this up. Ma'am, I think you've called the wrong number. There are other helplines. You don't believe me either. I believe you suffered some kind of trauma. You don't believe a swan raped me, do you? Ma'am, there are people who can help you. No, I don't think so. I think everyone loves birds too much. Maybe not crows or blue jays, because everyone knows they steal eggs and peck out the brains of little birds, but swans, everyone loves swans, right? Please, let me give you a different number to call. No, I don't think so. Yes, I remember that particular phone call. It's always bothered me. What really happened to her? Or was it a joke? We do get prank calls, you know, though I can't imagine how confused someone must be to think calling a rape hotline could be entertaining. I mean, after all, I'm talking to someone who isn't even serious. I'm not available for somebody who might really need my help. What? Well, no, it wasn't a busy night at all. This isn't New York, for God's sake. We average maybe 2-3 rapes a year. Well, she said she was raped by a swan. How believable is that? Not very, I can tell you. But I don't know. Ever since then, I've thought I could have handled that call better, you know? I'm a psych major, so I wonder what really happened. What did the swan symbolize? I mean, it's a classically beautiful bird, associated with fairy tales and innocence. Sometimes I wonder, was she really raped? What? No, of course I don't mean by a bird. I said a psych major, not a fairy tale believer. I mean, I know what's real and imagined. That's my area of expertise. Women are not raped by birds, but they are raped. Sometimes I wonder if that's what happened, you know? She was raped, and it was all so horrible that she lost her mind and grasped this winged symbol of innocence, a swan. I mean, let's not be too graphic here, but after all, how big is a swan's penis? Excuse me? Well, no, of course I don't mean to suggest that the horror of rape is measured by the size of the instrument used. What newspaper did you say you're from again? I think I've answered enough questions anyway. What can you tell me about this woman? Woman lays egg. Emergency room physicians were shocked and surprised at the delivery of a 20-pound egg laid by a woman brought to the hospital by her husband Thursday night. She just looked pregnant, said H.O. McKill, an orderly at the hospital. She didn't look no different from any other pregnant lady, except maybe a little more hysterical because she was shouting about the egg coming, but nobody paid no attention, really. Ladies, when they is in labor, say all sorts of things. But then I heard Dr. Stevens saying, call Dr. Hogan. He says he's a veterinarian in town. That's when I walked over and got a good look, and sure enough, ain't no baby coming out of that lady. It's an egg for sure. Then Nurse Hyatt pulls the curtain shut, and I'm just standing there next to the husband, and so I says, you can go in there. That Nurse Hyatt just trying to keep me out. You're the husband, right? He looked kind of in shock, poor guy. I mean, who can blame him? Ain't every day your wife lays a 20-pound egg. Hospital officials refuse to comment on rumors that the woman is still a patient in a private room in the hospital where she sits on her egg, except for small periods of time when her husband relieves her. An anonymous source reports, none of us are supposed to be talking about it. I could lose my job. But yeah, she's in there trying to hatch that thing. Let me tell you something else. She's not too happy of a lady, and she wants to go home to do this there, but she's getting a lot of attention from the doctors. I'm not sure it's because they care about her. You know what I mean? Remember that sheep that got cloned? Well, this is very much more exciting than that. A woman who lays eggs. If you ask me, there'll be some pressure for her to do it again. Ain't right, really. She's a woman. She's going to be a mama. She ain't some pet in the zoo. Don't use my name, okay? I need this job. Sometimes she falls asleep on the egg, my Leda, who used to be so beautiful. Why did this happen to her? Why did it happen to us? I lift her up. She's light again since she's laid that thing. I lay her down on the bed. Her violet eyes flutter open. My egg, she says, and struggles against me. My baby. Shh, I say. Go to sleep. I'll sit on it. And I do. I sit on this egg, which is still warm from Leda's upside-down, heart-shaped ass that I used to cup in my hands and call my favorite Valentine. I think how life seems so strange to me now. All the things I used to know are confused. Leda sleeps, gently snoring. I readjust my weight. It's rather uncomfortable on the egg. Even in sleep, she looks exhausted. I can see the blue of her veins, new lines on her face. I never believed she was raped by a swan. And now there's this impossible thing. Does it mean the whole story was true? If so, I have really failed her. How will I ever make it up to her? If not, she cuckolded me, an old-fashioned word that seems so appropriate here, and she's making me into a laughingstock. You should hear the guys at work. The women just look at me and don't say anything at all. I dream of a gun I do not own. I point it in different directions. Sometimes I'm a hunter in red and black stalking swans. Sometimes I bring the gun to work and spray the office with bullets. Sometimes I point it at a mirror. Sometimes it is Leda's violet eyes I see. She doesn't scream. She doesn't really care about anything now, except the egg. He lifts me off the egg and carries me to the bed. My egg, my baby. I'll sit on it, he says, and he does. I sink into sleep. I dream of feathers falling like snow, the swoop of wings across the sky, the pale white moon, my garden roses closed in the night, the sound of wings, a great white bird, white. I dream white, silence and emptiness, inside of an egg, a perfect world. When I wake up, he's still sitting on the egg. Are you crying? I say. Yes, he says, like it's something noble. Get off, I go. I'll sit on it now. Don't you want to know why I'm crying? He says. Get off. I don't want you making the baby sad with all your sad energy. It's had a hard enough beginning already. Leda, I'm sorry, he goes. Get off, I shout. Get off! Get off! He stands up. A bunch of hospital people run into the room. Leave us alone, I shout. He turns to the hospital people, those tears still on his face but drying up some, and he goes, We need to be alone. No, I shout. You go too. Leave me and my baby alone. Then I pick up the egg. They all gasp. The egg is very heavy. I hold it close to my chest. Forget it. I'll leave, I say. That Nurse Hyatt steps toward me, but Dr. Hogan, the veterinarian, puts up his hand like a school crossing guard, and she stops. We don't want her to hurt the egg, he says. Which shows how they don't understand. Hurt the egg? Why would I hurt the egg? My baby. It's not my baby's fault what the father did. They all take a step back, even my husband, which just proves how whatever he was loving, it ain't about me. It was someone he imagined, someone mean enough to crush my baby just to make a point. I hold the egg real close. I'm leaving the hospital. I was not prepared for the photographers. Chicken woman escapes hospital with egg. Exclusive photos. Well, I thought they were artists or something like that. I was very surprised to learn that he's an insurance salesman. There's not much I can really tell you for certain. Their house is set back off the road a bit. For most of the year, it's well hidden by the foliage. During the winter months, I've seen it from a distance. It looks cute, bungalowish. I have a friend who knows somebody who once went to a party there before they owned it, and she said it was very charming. The only personal experience I've had with either of them was a couple of springs ago when I was in Florman's garden shop and she was there looking at rose bushes. I remember this so vividly because she was one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. She had purple eyes, quite striking, really, pale skin, blonde hair, a striking figure. Everyone noticed her. When I look at these photographs, I have a hard time believing this is the same person. What happened to her? She looks quite frightened, doesn't she? I can't comment on the egg. I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I don't know how she fooled the doctors, but of course she didn't lay that egg. She's an ordinary woman. By all appearances, she needs help. Wish everyone would forget this nonsense and just get her the help she needs. When he came home, I had to let him in because sometimes I would get so tired I'd fall asleep, and then when I woke up, I was kind of only half on the egg and half off, and so I let him in if he promised to sit on it, and he goes, "Leda, I love you." But I've heard that before. Don't mean nothing anymore from him. "Leda, please forgive me," he goes. I say, "Sit on the egg." I ain't got the strength to begin forgiving, and I don't know if I ever will. I go upstairs and stare out the window at the garden, which is all overgrown now. I think how sorry just ain't enough. We just made love, me and him. Fell asleep like he does. I thought it would be nice to walk near my roses underneath that pale full moon. I put on my dragonfly kimono. It's silk and it feels so nice against my skin. It was a beautiful night, just a little bit smelling of roses. I thought I was happy. Then that swan comes swooping down, and for just a moment I thought it was a sign, like of a good thing happening to me, because I ain't never seen a swan in my garden. I ain't never seen one flying. Then it was on top of me. It was much heavier than I ever thought, and when it flew into me, I fell to the ground, and I couldn't imagine. It was all feathers and wings and claws and beak, and I was hitting it and trying to get away, and also at the same time feeling like why would a bird attack me? I don't want to hurt it. I just want it out. And then, my God, I felt it. You know, my mind I could not, a swan doing this to me. I hit at it and clawed at it, and it bit me and scratched me, and the whole time those wings was flapping, and so now people are making jokes about it, about me. I ain't stupid. I know that. Don't tell me some lady I never met who feels sorry for me because she don't really believe it happened. I don't give a shit. When my husband keeps saying sorry, what am I supposed to do with that? This happened to me, and it was horrible. When I needed him most, he was making 3-egg omelets and trying to figure out who I cheated on him with. So he's sorry? Well, what's he going to do about that? I can't take care of him. It's all I can do to take care of myself and my baby. Also, one more thing, since it's truth time. It did occur to me once or twice to break the egg. I mean, in the beginning. What will I do if I hatch a swan? Thanksgiving, I guess. Yeah, sometimes I think like that and don't gasp and look away from me. I ain't evil. I'm just a regular woman that something really bad happened to. When it did, I learned some things about the world and myself that maybe I'd rather not know. That don't change it. I stand at the bedroom window and watch my garden dying. What do I believe in now? I don't know. I don't know what to do for her. I sit on the egg and remember the good times. Leda laughing. Leda in the garden. Leda dancing. Leda naked. Beautiful, beautiful Leda. Beneath me I feel a movement, hear a sound. I sit very still, listen very carefully. There it is again. "Leda!" I shout. "Leda!" She comes running down the stairs. Where'd she get that robe? I didn't even know she owned such a thing. Blue terry cloth stained with coffee. She stares at me with those dark-rimmed eyes wide with fright. "What?" she says. "Baby's coming," I whisper and slide off the egg. We stand side by side watching the egg shake. I can hardly breathe. A chip of eggshell falls on the quilt. I find myself praying, just a general sort of plea. Please, please let my baby not be a swan. He takes my hand. I let him. It is the first human touch other than the doctor's. I don't feel like they count since the night when it happened. It feels strange to be touched. I can feel his pulse, his heat. It feels good and strange. Not bad. I just ain't sure how long I will let it continue. We watch the egg tremble and crack, and I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something big, like the white in my dreams. Everything is here now. All my life. All my love. What comes out of that egg will make me either drown in the white or fly out of it. I want to fly out of it, but I ain't got the strength to do anything about it. That's when I see a tiny fist. I pull my hand away from him and cover my mouth. No wings, I pray, please. A violet eye. I'm standing so still in case I move and we fall into a different reality. No beak, I think. And just then, like the world was made of what we want, I see the mouth and I start to laugh. But I stop because some more eggshell falls off and a second mouth appears right beside the first one. I don't know what that's all about. Please, I think. Please. I didn't know what to think. I've been pretty ambivalent about the whole egg thing, to be honest. I only sat on it for her. But as soon as it started hatching, I felt excited and then kind of nervous. Like, what's happening here? We're going to have a baby bird? How do I feel about that? I didn't even think about it when I reached over and took her hand. I just did it like we hadn't been having all this trouble. And I realized we were holding hands, and I was so happy about that, it distracted me from the egg for a minute. I think we were both relieved to see the little fist. Of course, I knew we weren't in the clear yet. It was very possible that we were hatching some kind of feathered human, or some such combination. Could I love the baby? Yes, this thought occurred to me. Could I love this baby from this horrible act? To be honest, I didn't know if I could. She pulled her hand away. I ached for her immediately. We saw an eye, violet, just like hers. I thought I could definitely love the baby if it looked like her. Then we saw the mouth, and after a moment, another mouth, and I thought, freak! I know I shouldn't have thought it, but I did. I thought we were going to have this freak for a child. All these images flashed through my mind of me carrying around this two-mouthed baby, growing feathers during puberty, long talks about inner beauty. Had it all figured out. That's when I knew. Even if it had two mouths and feathers, I could love this kid. I looked at Leda. It's like something momentous had happened to me, and she didn't even realize it. She stood there in that old blue terry cloth robe with the coffee stains down the front, her hair all a tangle, her violet eyes circled in fright, her face creased with lines, her hands in fists near her mouth. I wanted to tell her, so shh, don't worry. Everything's going to be all right. Doesn't matter how it looks. But I didn't say anything because I also finally realized I wasn't going to teach her anything about love. Not Leda, who carried this thing and laid it, took it away from all those cold and curious doctors, brought it home and sat on it, let her own beauty go untended so she could tend to it. I have nothing to teach her. I have much to learn. Then I knowed what was happening when the egg really started to fall apart. 2 mouths, 4 fists, 4 legs, 2 heads, and thank God, 2 separately beautiful, perfect little girl bodies. 2 babies, exhausted and crying. I walked over to them and kneeled down beside them, and I just brushed the egg shell off from that gooey stuff, and one of them had violet eyes, and the other looked like my husband. I realized that on that night I got pregnant twice. Once by my husband and once by that swan. Both babies are beautiful in their own way. Though I got to admit the one that looks kind of like me from before all this happened will probably grow to be the greater beauty. And for this reason, I hold her a little tighter because I know how hard it can be to be beautiful. My husband bends over and helps brush the eggshell and gooey stuff off. We carry the babies to the couch. I lay down with them and untie my robe. I can hear my husband gasp. Whether for pleasure or sorrow, I don't know. My body has changed so much. I lay there, one baby at each breast, sucking. Oh, Leda, will you ever forgive me? Will you trust me with our girls? Will I fail them too? Is this what love means? The horrible burden of the damage we do to each other? If only I could have loved you perfectly, like a god instead of a human. Forgive me. Let me love you and the children. Please. She smiles for the first time in months, yawns and closes those beautiful eyes, then opens them wide, a frightened expression on her face. She looks at me. I'm not sure she sees me, and she says, "Swan," or was it "swine"? I can't be sure. I'm only certain that I love her. I will always love her. Leda. Always, always Leda. Your terry cloth robe with coffee stains, while the girls nap, and you do too. Sun bright on the lines of your face as you walk in the garden, careful and unsure, as you weed around the roses. Leda. I will always love you. Leda in the dirt. Leda in the sun. Leda shading her eyes and looking up at the horrible memory of what was done to you. Always. Leda. Always. Well, we have a little time left, so I thought I would do one of the segments of We Came First, relationship advice from women who have been there. This is Queen Elizabeth on having difficult parents. Profile. I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England, too. Looking for someone who has a similar heart and an appreciation for chalky makeup. Turn-ons, wigs, adventurers, strong hearts. Turn-offs, weak and feeble men. Dear Elizabeth, I want to open my heart to love, but I just can't. I feel like I've put up a lot of barriers to happiness. In part, I think it might be because of the fact that my parents' marriage was horrible. Their eventual divorce really soured the whole idea of matrimony for me. I feel like I should have outgrown this. How can I get over my parents' bad relationship? Wounded daughter. Dear Wounded, have you considered staying the way you are? Personally, I'd recommend focusing on keeping your heart and therefore your head. My mother, Anne Boleyn, had hers chopped off by order of my father, King Henry VIII. Even if there are fewer beheadings these days, love is still dangerous. Sounds like you figured that out early, as did I. By the age of 8, after seeing my father behead yet another wife, I declared that I would never get married. Nothing ever changed my opinion in this regard. I will have but one mistress here and no master, I told the Earl of Leicester, the man I probably came closest to loving, if not marrying. As for everyone else who wanted to marry me, I gave them sweet words but no promises. Do you know how it worked out? Of course you do. I'm Queen Elizabeth. A movie will be made about me every 10 years for as long as there are people around to watch it. Sincerely yours, the Virgin Queen. Here's one more. Mary Shelley on grieving. Profile. Penned Frankenstein at the age of 19 and essentially invented the modern horror genre. Lost my virginity on my mom's grave. Trust me, as the proto-feminist Mary Wollstonecraft, my mom would have been fine with it. Looking for someone to reanimate the dead with. Turn-ons, monsters. Turn-offs, monstrous men. Dear Mary, my husband passed away a few years ago. I'm having a hard time letting go. At least that's what my friends and family will tell me. It's been 2 years, and I still can't bring myself to get rid of any of his clothing, some of his other personal items. I know I should, but I don't want to. Is it really so odd to keep a few items from your departed beloved? Not letting go. Dear Not Letting Go. No, it's totally normal. Look, I was married to the poet Percy Shelley. We ran away together when I was just 17. We couldn't be properly married until later after his first wife committed suicide. Tragically, he drowned 6 years later off the Italian coast. My dear husband was cremated. All of his remains burned, except for his heart. It was thought to have calcified and thus resisted cremation as readily as a skull, a jaw, or fragments of bone. As E. Cummings would write long after my own death, I carried his heart with me, though not in my heart, in a silk bag. And I died in 1852. His heart was found inside my desk, wrapped in the pages of his poem Adonis. So that's how I handled grief. By comparison, keeping a few of your husband's old shirts seems downright quaint. Pretty much the most normal thing you could possibly do, in fact. Never let go. Mary.